Gestational diabetes, why the system fails you, and how I learned to work with it. Let's talk about it. My name is Shauna, and I started my YouTube channel to talk about my Hashimoto's diagnosis and my healing journey, but I also felt really called to make a video about gestational diabetes because I had gestational diabetes. What I'm learning about myself is a coping mechanism that I have is to go on YouTube and see if I can find videos or content about the things that I'm experiencing. And when I went on YouTube to try to find like meal inspo, how other mamas were dealing with their diagnosis, and just like general information because I was feeling pretty overwhelmed by my diagnosis, there wasn't really much that I could find. So I felt inspired to make a video, especially because I did so much research after my diagnosis, and I'm lucky enough that I actually work for a nutritionist. She taught me so much about how to eat and about blood sugar, and so I was able to control my diabetes just with food and the way that I ate. And sure, maybe some of that was luck, but like I said, I did a lot of research, a lot of experimentation, and I just thought I would share what I learned and what I ate and just see if it could help maybe another mama in that position. Just a quick little disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional. This is just what I did during my gestational diabetes and what worked for me. So I do have a family history of gestational diabetes. My mom had gestational diabetes with her pregnancy with me. My sister had gestational diabetes with her pregnancy with her daughter. So I kind of like always knew that I was going to have gestational diabetes, but that still didn't stop me from feeling really, really bad about myself when I failed the test. I was lucky enough to be pregnant with my sister-in-law at the time, and I had several friends who either had just given birth or were pregnant as well, and none of them had gestational diabetes. And I felt really, really embarrassed by my diagnosis, if I'm being honest. I felt like there was a lot of shame. I feel like in general, there is a stigma about gestational diabetes, and I think people are quick to assume that the mom wasn't eating healthy or she doesn't live a healthy lifestyle, so she must have done something to get gestational diabetes. Yeah, I kind of took on all those beliefs and just started feeling really bad about myself, even though, again, I kind of always knew I was going to have it with family history. So after my diagnosis, my healthcare provider had this orientation Zoom call of the blood sugar schedule, and it was essentially like this course on how to eat with gestational diabetes. And this is why I say the system fails you. This orientation starts off and the woman is listing factors that could contribute to why you might be here. You might be here because you had diabetes previously before you were pregnant. You might be here because you are a certain ethnicity. And then she ends with, or you might be here because you gained more weight than recommended in your pregnancy. Which I think telling several women on a Zoom call that they gained more weight than recommended is diabolical. Like, what do you mean? Which my OB had never brought up my weight or brought up a concern about my weight gain in pregnancy. I gained 40 pounds in my pregnancy, which I honestly think is on the low side. And yeah, that comment just sent me into a spiral because I was already feeling bad about the diagnosis. I was already kind of feeling alone because I had all of these friends that had babies and nobody got gestational diabetes. And then getting that comment of, well, you probably gained more weight than recommended, just further sent me into that spiral. So then they go into the rules. The blood sugar / eating schedule that they give you. I'm going to insert the schedule right here. Starting from the top. Eating this many times a day is just like a lot of planning, especially because the way that you have to eat on this diet is pretty specific. I was just already overwhelmed at the fact that I was going to have to eat every 2 to 3 hours. I had the worst heartburn in my third trimester, and the thought of eating right before bed just absolutely sent me. Also, having to take your blood sugar, okay? It's not a fun thing. Of course, there are worse things, but starting off my day by getting this number would drastically affect my mood, affect my mindset for that day. We had to eat everything within 20 minutes, which I am an extraordinarily slow eater. I found that quite difficult. I also am just someone who doesn't like to be rushed. Actually, we would take our blood sugar. We would write in like a little comment section everything that we ate, and then we would have a caseworker review it. I don't want to do this. I just felt so resistant about the entire thing. So now we're going to get into the food recommendations and the meal recommendations, and this is why I say the system fails you. If you haven't seen my previous videos, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's 2 years before I was pregnant. And in that time and in that healing journey, I learned how to eat in a different way that supported the healing of my thyroid. And that specific formula was eating protein and fat first before eating the carbohydrates of my meal. Also just going a little bit heavier with protein and a little bit heavier with fat. Kind of already had that structure, and that was working for me really well. Like, I did heal my Hashimoto's enough to get pregnant and sustain a healthy pregnancy. So then we're in this seminar, and the meal example that they gave to us for breakfast, which I actually wrote it down because I just couldn't believe it. The meal recommendation is eating 1 piece of toast with 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, a 1/4 cup canned peaches, and a 1/4 cup of cottage cheese. First of all, anyone who eats this breakfast is going to have a blood sugar spike because it's mostly carbs, which is the exact opposite of what they tell you to do. I look at this breakfast and I'm like, I would eat more than this when I was trying to get pregnant. And you're telling me I need to eat this breakfast when I'm almost done growing a human? Like, that makes no sense to me. The entire seminar was about portion control. It honestly felt like I was getting really bad early 2000s diet culture tips. Like, that's how the seminar felt to me. It was talking about eating less. They encouraged cutting carbs and eating a low carb diet, which again, if you're in your 3rd trimester of pregnancy, you're already really tired, okay? And carbs give us energy. And now you're saying that we should try our best to cut them out instead of, hey, you should add more protein to your meal and you should add more fat to your meal. Healthy fats are so important to include in your diet is because, one, we as women, we need healthy fats for our reproductive system. And 2, healthy fat gives the same signal in your brain as sugar, so it can be very satiating. I got diagnosed right before Christmas, and let me tell you, I was not about to just not eat some gingerbread cookies, okay? I'm pregnant. I'm going to eat a gingerbread cookie. I have struggled with disordered eating for most of my life, and this seminar just absolutely sent me into a spiral. I was crying. I was like, this makes no sense. And as someone who has gone through eating disorder recovery, there are certain rules that you need to follow in kind of like the first stages. Don't count calories. Don't count carbs. Don't completely eliminate a food group or, eliminating sugar entirely. That's going to send you into a binge because your brain's going to be triggered, say, oh, that's off limits to me, so I'm going to think about it nonstop because that's just how my brain works. And so all of this advice that I was given in this seminar was the complete opposite of what my therapist had told me to do to recover from my eating disorder. And then I felt like I was getting prescribed an eating disorder in all of this. Again, having worked for a nutritionist who has her master's in nutrition and is absolutely brilliant, and everything that I learned from Sophia was contradicting what this professional was telling us. And so, looking for camaraderie, looking for advice, I did what any normal person would do, and I went on the streets of Reddit. And that only made me spiral more because there were all of these forums and every single mom was commenting and saying, yeah, this took the joy out of my pregnancy. I'm eating all of the things that my medical professionals told me to eat and my blood sugar is going crazy. And I just kind of felt like there wasn't a single person who had any tips or tricks or any really advice other than just acknowledging that it sucks. And so here I am with hopefully some tips and tricks that could help someone else. So what I started doing, I would eat my meals in a specific order. So I am someone that eats the same thing every day for like weeks and weeks and weeks until I get tired of it and then I do something else. But a breakfast that I loved was this egg scramble. So it was 2 eggs, couple mushrooms, onions, sausage, some goat cheese on top, and then I would do a little side of avocado, a couple slices, and then I would eat a cookie. Again, it's Christmas time. I'm pregnant. Yeah, I had a cookie for breakfast every single day. But I would eat my scramble and then I would eat my avocado first, and then I would eat the cookie. Additionally, I would drink 1 cup of coffee until I was 36 weeks pregnant. But how I made my coffee was with full fat coconut milk and then a scoop of protein powder. I have used Vital Proteins powder. I've used Paleo Valley. And then I've also used Prime protein powder, and I think that they're all really good. My recommendation is to get a stevia sweetened protein powder because my body at least reacted really well to stevia. In general, I was sweetening a lot of things with stevia. Another thing that I found is taking a walk around 40 minutes after eating can lower your blood sugar significantly. And so I would time my dog's walks with my meals. So I would eat breakfast and then I would take him on like a 10-20 minute walk. You didn't know there was a 2024 study done that showed that doing 10 body weight squats can also help reduce the blood sugar spike. The same, if not better, than a 10-minute walk. So I thought that was very interesting. I did not know of that information when I had gestational diabetes, but I just thought I would add it in here in case you're pregnant in the winter time and maybe it's pouring and you don't want to go on a walk. But those are the things that I felt like should have been included in that seminar. I feel like that is very significant information that could help a lot of women. And I found that my blood sugar always get good numbers in the morning, even though I was eating a cookie for breakfast. Another thing that I learned from Sophia is the power of fiber. Okay, I feel like fiber is super slept on in the health and wellness world, but people are kind of starting to realize the importance of fiber. Essentially, what fiber does is it slows the blood sugar spike. Like it's almost as if it's adding like speed bumps in the road. Another thing that I would eat is I would make a smoothie for lunch. Okay, it sounds weird, but you can't taste it. I would do cauliflower rice, frozen zucchini, half a banana, some yogurt, protein powder. I would do some nut butter. I would do some cinnamon. I really would just like throw a lot in there. And then I would eat like some form of protein, like a chomps. Then again, I would either do a small workout or I would walk my dog about 40 minutes after eating my next meal. So after my deep Reddit spiral, I was like, I really need to go to therapy. And I am blessed that I was put with the most amazing therapist, and she helped me kind of reframe this entire situation of, you know, this is a really good way to get data about your body and your specific nutritional needs. And that's something that my friend Sophia was saying as well, is this is kind of just an experiment and seeing, you know, what spikes my blood sugar, what works with my body and what foods don't work with my body, because, you know, everyone's personal nutrition is so different. And something that I thought was interesting is out of all of the foods that I ate and that I tried, something that consistently spiked my blood sugar was oats. Like in the form of literally anything, my blood sugar would always spike if I ate something with oats in it. And I shared this with my sister and my mom. And my mom shared that she has always suspected that oats spiked her blood sugar. And my sister was told to eat steel cut oatmeal with milk every morning for breakfast when she had gestational diabetes. And every single morning, her blood sugar would spike really high. And so I feel like that is interesting that oats, for some reason, with the women in my family, give us blood sugar spikes. And so if I had just blindly listened to these meals and this meal plan that they had given me, I would consistently have blood sugar spikes and I would have had to be on insulin. But instead, I followed my own guidelines and I was able to control it with food. When I went to my 32-week appointment, my OB asked me, how was the seminar? She also had gestational diabetes in 2 of her pregnancies. And I told her, it was borderline traumatic. And then I brought up, you probably gained more weight than recommended comment and asked her, is my weight gain something that we need to be concerned about? And she said, absolutely not, that's completely outdated information. And the reason women get gestational diabetes is because of the placenta, because the placenta hormones, which supports the baby growing, can block the mother's insulin. And so it's completely dependent on the placenta, which actually the father of the baby contributes to that. And just because you have gestational diabetes in one of your pregnancies, you might not have it in the next. Like, I learned that my mom didn't have gestational diabetes with my sister, but she had it with my brother and I. And same with my OB. She only had it 2 out of 3 pregnancies. When she told me that information, she was like, there's nothing you could have done. There's nothing you could have changed. Like this, it was always going to be this way because the placenta hormones. And so I think if I would have known that before going into the seminar, I would have been a lot less hard on myself. So if nobody's told you that yet, it is not your fault and there is nothing you could have done. I also want to say too that sometimes you can do everything right and you might still need to be on insulin. If I learned anything from pregnancy, it's that you can do all the preparation in the world and it still might not go to plan. So the baby is the captain of this ship, and ultimately it is such a blessing to be able to house and grow sweet babies. So I hope that you found something helpful in this video. If I get gestational diabetes again, if I'm lucky and blessed enough to have another baby, I will definitely be vlogging it this time. And I think I'll also be making like what I eat in a day videos, which I actually thought about doing the first time I was diagnosed, but I kind of was just like too overwhelmed and really still in the experimentation process. So anyways, I feel like the second time around I'll be a little more stable. And I just want to say, as someone who is on the other side of it now, it went by a lot faster than I thought it would, even though I was a little miserable at the time. And it really is just a short blip of your life. And then you give birth and you can eat whatever you want again. I hope that you feel more encouraged, that maybe you have some meal inspo from this. And please know I'm wishing you all the best in your pregnancy, in your birth, in your postpartum. And thank you so much for watching.